The nervous system can be divided into the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, outside the brain and spinal cord. This peripheral nervous system can be divided into a sensory division, where the neurons are bringing sensory information to the brain and spinal cord, and then a motor division, where the central nervous system is sending motor commands to the rest of the body. This motor division of the motor commands that the brain and spinal cord send to the body can then be divided into a somatic nervous system and an autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is the neurons which send messages to skeletal muscle. Now, some of these messages are voluntary commands, but then there are also involuntary commands. So we can split the somatic nervous system into a pyramidal division for the voluntary commands and an extra pyramidal division for the involuntary commands. So for example, I can turn my neck voluntarily and I can hold my breath, but I can also then turn my neck as part of a reflex to a large sound or unconsciously breathe as skeletal muscles cause inhales and exhales. The autonomic nervous system has a different set of target tissues. Instead of sending motor commands to skeletal muscle, the autonomic division controls cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, exocrine glands, which are secreting products from the body through a tube or a duct typically, and endocrine glands, which make hormones. In addition, the autonomic nervous system can send commands to adipose and immune cells. And so the way I describe it to my class is the autonomic nervous system is in charge of the guts. And when you take students studying anatomy, anatomy and physiology 2 as a course is primarily based on the guts. And so the autonomic nervous system is that part of the nervous system which regulates the systems of the body studied primarily in anatomy and physiology 2. So thus, when nerves go to the heart to increase heart rate with cardiac acceleratory nerves or decrease heart rate through the vagus nerve, this is the autonomic nervous system. When neurons send commands to the muscle and blood vessel walls to cause vasoconstriction or vasodilation and change blood flow or change blood pressure, this is the autonomic nervous system. When commands go to the smooth muscle of the digestive system, which makes up most of the digestive tract, or the respiratory system to change the passageways, the respiratory passageways causing bronchodilation or bronchoconstriction, or the urinary and reproductive systems. This is the autonomic nervous system. When commands are sent to sweat glands or to salivary glands or the exocrine glands, which are causing products to leave the body. These commands are sent by the autonomic nervous system. When commands are sent to the endocrine glands to make hormones, this is the autonomic nervous system. And then commands can be sent to adipose to increase the breakdown of lipids. Interestingly, commands can also be sent to immune cells. Now, I'd like to just first describe the synapses here, because we often think of synapses as a physical connection between, say, the synaptic knob of a neuron and, say, a target cell, like a muscle cell, which has a specialized region, like a motor end plate on a skeletal muscle cell, where these two touch, where neurotransmitters can be released, etc. In the autonomic nervous system, however, we observe something different. We observe that axons can, instead of having discrete synaptic knobs in one end, can have a series of thickenings known as varicosities along their length, from which neurotransmitters can be released, and that this axon can move. So the cells which are capable of receiving these neurotransmitters could change as this axon moves, and they wouldn't just be at the end of the axon, but rather along the length. And then some of the peripheral cells, the effectors, might then also move, like white blood cells can be found in the vicinity of synapses. They have receptors for neurotransmitters, but then they can leave and go elsewhere. And so it is possible for the autonomic nervous system to affect moving cells. Also, smooth muscle and cardiac muscle cells are often joined by as gap junctions which allow electrical messages to go from cell to cell. So if the autonomic nervous system affects, one region of muscle cells, then the effects can spread throughout the muscle tissue as action potentials and ions pass through these gap junctions from cell to cell. So the autonomic nervous system can thus affect cells with which it did not directly interact.